Hi, I'm Michael Day. For nearly 30 years, I taught graduate level courses in adult education at the University of Wyoming. Today, as our lives change forever with the new coronavirus, perhaps exploring some of that literature may be useful. If so, at the end of the video, there's a link to my blog. Stay healthy. Help each other. Thanks. I first assembled my personal top 51 works in American adult education in 2011, the year I retired from UW. For the sake of the video, it's being divided into two parts, each around 12 minutes in length. In part 1 are works either spoken or written from 1776 to 1937, and in part 2, works either spoken or written from 1938 to 2008. For the sake of brevity, I'll go through the list rather quickly. But at the end of the video, there will be a slide that shares my blog address, where you can download 51 works in American adult education and where contact information is provided. When I taught graduate courses in adult education, my favorite course to teach was ADED 5510, Adult Education Movement USA, an examination of the history and literature. Perhaps in a future video I'll explore other aspects about this course, but the reading list for the course, both required and recommended, included many of the works highlighted in this video. First, what do I mean by adult education? By adult education, I'm referring to the means by which adults continue to make sense of the times in which they live. That includes a commitment to remain open to novelty and to engage life actively, not passively, as well as a willingness to continue learning throughout life. 10 themes. The 51 works included in the listing were selected with the following in mind: that we are a young nation, still struggling to apply and practice the democratic principles embodied in our Declaration of Independence and Constitution. That democracy is messy. That a key principle of democracy is equality of opportunity. That we share the earth with a host of other living organisms. That one key to enjoying life is maintaining youthful curiosity. That intelligent decision-making often requires us to think creatively and boldly. That learning new things often requires risk and uncertainty. Learning in adulthood can be nurtured and aided by others. Our understandings about helping adults learn continues to grow. And that, at the end of the day, maturity in life is an achievement not assigned by age, but defined by our commitment to learn and to continue growing throughout life. As will likely become rather evident, my beliefs about adult education and its personal meaning weaves together parts from 3 philosophical traditions that we tend to call liberal, progressive, and transcendental. Liberal because at its core resides the personal growth of each individual. So education and learning first and foremost should empower everyone to deal with the complexities surrounding modern life. Progressive, because we are social beings, living in an increasingly changing world, rich in challenges and difficulties. So our education and learning should also be community and society-centered, focused on solving real-life problems. And transcendental, because to focus only on the social and individual domains of learning and education is not enough. Ultimately, richness and substance in life resides within our kinship to the natural world. Why 51 works? This list is but a selection. There certainly are many others, though this is not a bad listing with which to begin. Here it is. Again, at the end of the video, my blog address is provided, where you can download the entire work. It also is rather brief, providing the work's full reference information, a bit about its purpose, and a short excerpt. 1. July 4th, 1776. Thomas Jefferson. In the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson and co-authors John Adams and Ben Franklin capture the sentiment of the Continental Congress in declaring the independence of their United 13 States from King George III and England. 2. 1788. Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. Shared in the Federalist Papers are 85 letters to the public encouraging the adoption of the new Constitution of the United States that was approved 1 month earlier and forwarded to each state legislature for ratification. Final ratification did occur in September 1788. 3. 1789. Benjamin Franklin. In his autobiography, Franklin, often viewed as the patron saint of American adult education, recalls parts of his life and tries to inspire others to adopt some of his virtues, especially his tolerant and inquiring attitude, as well as his commitment to public service. 4. 1792. Mary Wollstonecraft. In Vindication of Rights of Women, Wollstonecraft pleads for equal education opportunities for women. 5. July 4th, 1826. Robert Owen. In Declaration of Mental Independence, first delivered on July 4th, 1826, ironically on the same day both Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died, Owen draws attention to the original Declaration of Independence document, adopted 50 years earlier, as being only an initial step toward achieving full independence. Mental independence, individual mental maturity, was still a work in progress. 6. 1835. Alexis de Tocqueville. With a companion, de Tocqueville visited the United States in 1831. And in Democracy in America, he reflects, up close and personal, upon America's experiment in democracy, the good and the not so good. 7. 1836. Ralph Waldo Emerson. In Nature, Emerson encourages individuals to spend time alone in nature, allowing their senses to fully engage and to truly experience living. 8. 1841. Ralph Waldo Emerson. In Self-reliance, Emerson encourages individuals to resist mindless conformity, trusting their own feelings and ideas. 9. 1854. Henry David Thoreau. In Walden, Thoreau, a close friend of Emerson's, shares observations from a journal kept while spending 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days in a self-built small cabin on Walden Pond. 10. July 4th, 1852. Frederick Douglass. In this, his moving Independence Day speech, Douglass reminds listeners of the nation's hypocrisy in celebrating a day that proclaims equality of rights when such sentiment cannot coexist with the institution of slavery. 11. 1854. Chief Seattle. In this historically sad moment in U.S. history, Chief Seattle, chief of the Duwamish people, regretfully accepts the terms of a treaty with the federal government. 12. 1862. Henry David Thoreau. In Walking, a short and rather inspiring work, Thoreau stresses that we are not merely members of human society, we are also members of nature. We should spend time walking, sauntering in nature, and should embrace our untamed natural spirit. 13. 1885. Helen Hunt Jackson. In Century of Dishonor, Jackson's strong indictment of the U.S. government, she draws attention to the Indian problem in the United States and provides evidence that this problem was not due to the American Indian, but due to the U.S. government and to those who treated the American Indian so inhumanely. 14. 1892, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. In Solitude of Self, Stanton argues the necessity of equal rights and opportunities for women, primarily because the human condition requires personal strength and forbearance for both men and women. 15. 1903, W.E.B. DuBois. In Souls of Black Folk, DuBois addresses what it means to be black at the beginning of a new century, and prophetically suggests the main problem of the 20th century will revolve around race. 16. 1910, Jane Addams. Celebrating the 20th anniversary of one of the first social settlements in North America, in Chicago, Addams reflects upon her settlement's first 20 years, why it was established, and its early challenges and successes. 17. 1913, John Muir. Written the year before he died, in Story of Boyhood, Muir shares remembrances from his Scotland and Wisconsin years, lessons learned prior to experiencing the wilderness of California. 18. 1919 report, E.D. Waller. In this work, Waller reprints and discusses the British Ministries of Reconstruction's 1919 report, considered by Waller to probably be the most important single contribution ever made to the literature of adult education. 19. 1926. Edward C. Lindeman. In The Meaning of Adult Education, a classic in the academic field of adult education, Lindeman challenges readers to wrestle with the understandings they may already have regarding adult education, especially its purpose and methods. 20. 1926. Everett Dean Martin. In Meaning of a Liberal Education, another classic piece of early academic adult education literature, Martin examines the meaning of adult education, addressing three rather broad questions. What is an educated person like? How do they differ from the uneducated? Do they think differently? And if so, why? 21. 1927, John Dewey. In The Public and Its Problem, Dewey acknowledges that modern society has its share of problems. He identifies some, as well as the conditions that brought them about, and what he believes can be done to address them. 22. 1928, Edward Lee Thorndike et al. In Adult Learning, Thorndike and others provide scientific support to counter the assumption that only youth benefit from structured learning opportunities. 23. 1933, John Dewey. In How We Think, Dewey encourages teachers to reflect upon their classroom practice and to adopt instructional strategies that foster reflective thinking. 24. 1934, John Dewey. In A Common Faith, Dewey encourages readers to wrestle with the meaning of religious faith and to examine religious aspects of everyday experience. 25. 1936, Lyman Bryson. In Adult Education, Bryson, a professor at Teachers College, Columbia University, provides the first adult education textbook and introduces a new field of academic study. We end this section of my top 51 works in American adult education with a wonderful piece of fiction, whose main character is an immigrant attending an English language night class in New York City. 26. 1937, Leo Roston. The Education of Hyman Kaplan, a collection of short stories first published singularly in the New Yorker magazine. Rostand creates a number of memorable characters, especially the ever-hopeful and always entertaining Hyman Kaplan. Years earlier, Rostand taught night school English classes to arriving immigrants. That would do it for now. In part 2 of this series, I'll identify my final 25 works in American adult education. If you'd like to download a copy of my personal Top 51 Works in American Adult Education, you could link to the Adult Education section of my blog at michael-day.org. See you next time.